reporters like him are going around the world, basically, not just anywhere, talking to intellectuals like you, that, you know, who do you think is a terrorist? Like, I mean, I understand why they are asking questions, but is this really helping the cause instead of
which cause?
Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Is it like really resolving the cause?
I don't know who he is, and I have so many interviews I can't remember it, so I don't know what cause he's pursuing.
I mean, no, he's just he has a website that, you know, talks about Israeli and Palestinian conflict, like, you know, so is he, like, you know, really helping the conflict?
I don't know, you know, just the fact that he's talking about it doesn't tell me what he's trying to do. I mean, everybody talks about it from different points of view, so I can't answer because I don't know what cause he's pursuing.
Okay.
I mean, is it helping Israel-Palestine peace? No, of course not. If you want to, and the fact is, you don't have to do those interviews to help there. The problem of the Israel-Palestine conflict happens to lie right in Washington, the core of it. The United States refuses to join the rest of the world in supporting the very broad international consensus on a political settlement, which is virtually unanimous. It includes Europe, non-aligned countries, the Arab states, the Organization of Islamic States, which includes Iran. Hamas has supported it. It's just the U.S. and Israel refuse to support it and often block it. So the U.S. has vetoed Security Council resolutions that supports Israeli. I mean, when Israel is kind of a flat now, but Israel expanding settlements in the occupied territories in the West Bank, well, you know, the United States says it's opposed. On the other hand, it keeps funding. And it tells Israel, well, we don't like it, but sort of with a wink. In fact, Obama, who didn't really say anything about this, he just repeated the actual wording of the official statements from way back to which Israel was theoretically committed. He repeated the wording. But then when asked, his spokesperson was asked, is Obama going to do anything about it? He said, no, this is symbolic. We're not going to even do what George Bush the first did. Bush #1 was, he and James Baker, Secretary of State, were irritated, not by the fact of settlement, but by the manner. It was done in a very brazen, arrogant way, which was insulting. You know, James Baker would show up and pick that day to put a new settlement somewhere. They didn't like that, and they informed Israel there was going to be a penalty. And in fact, there was a slight penalty with cutback of loan guarantees, allegedly to the extent of the settlements. Well, Israel reacted and understood. So what they did is replace the prime minister with someone who's a little more affable, Shimon Peres, who's a much greater cynic than the former prime minister, Yitzhak Shamir. And Peres understood that what you have to do is wait until a week after Baker goes home and then put up the settlement, and then everything will be fine. And that's precisely what's happening at this minute. Everyone understands the game. The vice president was there the last couple of days, Joseph Biden, and the housing ministry timed the announcement of new settlements in Jerusalem with his visit. Yeah. And Biden naturally didn't like that, so he criticized it. And Israel sort of apologized and said, timing error or something. They all understand that it's not the fact of the settlement, it's the manner. And in fact, Israel's leading diplomatic correspondent, Akiva Eldar, had an article a day or two ago in which he just pointed this out. He said, look, everyone understands how the game is played. You don't insult people to their face, especially when they're your paymaster. And you've got to sort of be nice to them. So Eldar said, well, what will happen? He doesn't like it. He's critical of it. But he says, we all know what's going to happen. We'll delay the settlement until Biden's gone home and the journalists aren't there. And we'll quietly do exactly what we're going to do. And the U.S. will pretend it doesn't notice, because it's all being done with a wink anyway. So, as long as that continues, how are you going to get a political settlement? And incidentally, these settlements in Jerusalem are doubly illegal first of all, they're in the occupied territories. And top Israeli legal authorities told them back in 1967 that any settlement in the occupied territories is in violation of the core principles of international humanitarian law, Geneva Conventions. These are respected jurists, internationally respected jurists, so they knew. But they figured they'll just go ahead. So it's in violation of that. But it's, in Jerusalem, it's also in violation of specific Security Council resolutions that call on Israel not to change the status of Jerusalem. And the U.S. signed those, supported those resolutions. That was still when the United States was sort of part of the world that was agreeing with the international consensus. Since then, the U.S. still says, yes, they're illegal, but it doesn't do anything about them. In fact, it does do something about them. It funds them. It provides military, diplomatic, economic, and other support, which enables them to be carried out. Well, you can't do that and at the same time say, I'm seeking peace on a neutral broker. I mean, outside the West, everybody laughs.
So, relating to the conflicts in the world, especially the Palestine-Israel conflict, are you satisfied with the role of United Nations? If not, then isn't there a need for another organization which should be active and should have a practical solution for conflicts in the world?
You can say that there's a need for everyone to live in peace and love each other. There are a lot of things that are in need. There's a need to protect the environment so our grandchildren will survive. I mean, it's easy to lay out all kinds of things that would be really nice, but it becomes advocacy when you say, how do we go from here to there? Okay, now the United Nations, there's plenty of faults with the United Nations, but basically it's the sort of right kind of organization. A lot of things would be improved. And in fact, the American population pretty strongly supports it. So the U.S. population, by a considerable majority, thinks that the UN ought to take the lead in international crises, not the United States. The U.S. should just go along. In fact, the majority of the population here is in favor of abandoning the veto and going along with the majority opinion, even if we don't like it. Well, you know, these things aren't even on the agenda. The United States